Hi, and welcome to another episode of Small Business CFOs, the CFOs for your small business. We're excited to have you here and we're excited to jump into another episode. Now, before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce us because I know you're probably thinking, if you're new here, like, why the heck should I listen to you guys? And so we figured, we do a little intro, who we are and what we do. So I host this podcast with Terrell Turner, my amazing husband, and both of us, between the both of us, have Fortune 500 company experience. We've worked for multiple Fortune 500 companies in executive positions and manager positions and leadership positions, as well as owning our own consulting firms where we work with small businesses on a daily basis to help them elevate and grow their business and to provide the strategic insight that they need. Now, anything else, Terrell?
I think that was an amazing introduction. I mean, because like I said, what we do is we work with some of the biggest companies in the world. And now what we decided to do is take all of that wisdom, that knowledge, and we work with small businesses, helping them navigate the finance and the accounting side of their business.
Yes, good stuff. So we're going to jump right into it. Today, we want to talk about an important topic that I think is critical for every business owner. And that is, are you hiring the right support for your business? Do you have the right finance and accounting support for your business? Now, I'm excited to talk about this topic for a couple of reasons. One, we're in accounting and finance, but I think this is something that we see a lot, that we've seen in our personal lives, not just with our business, but in our personal lives where we've had multiple people that have started businesses. And one of the things that they've struggled with, especially if they don't have a background in accounting and finance or business background, is really being able to figure out the right business support, right finance support for their business. So yeah, definitely excited to jump into this one.
Yeah, man, I think that's a very important topic. I mean, and a lot of people, unfortunately, not enough people are asking this question. Now, we do get some people that ask this question, but not enough people, because I think the stereotype is that most people believe that, I go to my accountant to get my taxes done. So I got to go see my accountant, once a year to go get my tax return done. And what I tell people is, that was fine when you were just an individual and you had a job and you just had to get your taxes done at the end of the year. You may own a house or two or some investment property or whatever. That was fine then. But if you're running a business, then that's not cool. That's actually not going to be what's best for you, because one of the things that you need to do is you need to be using the financial information on a regular basis to make decisions. So first off, the stereotype of, hey, I only deal with my accountant once a year. If that's what you're doing, I would say you're probably not getting the best use out of that relationship. And this conversation is definitely for you if that's what you've been doing.
Yeah, but I think that's definitely a myth we need to quash. Another myth that I would say is that accountants are there for taxes. Like, I think it's one thing to really be able to understand, like, hey, I need to see my accountant on a frequent basis, but you're not just seeing your accountant for taxes, especially if you are a small business owner. You need to have conversations not only more than once a year with your accountant, but you also need to have an understanding of what you should really be getting from your accountant and be able to leverage that to the max. And I think for us to be able to understand this, one of the things I want to do, Terrell, is if we can just break down, because a lot of people sometimes kind of lump in like bookkeepers, they lump in accountants, they lump in CFOs, and I don't know what other categories, and just kind of put everyone into one category and be like, well, this is my accountant person. How do we break down, like, for example, if someone's a bookkeeper, what is it that I should expect from my bookkeeper to do for my business?
All right. So when it comes down to that, I mean, what I'll do is I'll lay out the roles and just to give you guys a heads up. I mean, the purpose of this podcast and the show is to introduce you to the topics and give you some insight. Now, if you want more deeper understanding, we've created a course that goes deeper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on just a little bit and scratch the surface to open the topic up for you. But first, it's just talking about the different roles. So you have bookkeepers, you have, AP and AR clerks, you have, your tax, preparer or your tax clerk. You may have a tax attorney or a CPA, and then you may have a financial analyst or CFO. Then you also have things like, your banker, your insurance agent, and your investors. For the most part, those are your major finance roles related to your business. And even if you are a small business, you probably have a need for all of those roles. And you may not realize it, or maybe you don't have a need for the investor. But all the other roles, I think you do have a need for all of those roles. Now, to break it down, from the bookkeeper standpoint, the basic bookkeeper is going to track your numbers, pretty much make your organize your financial transactions into a chart of accounts. That's what a basic bookkeeper is going to do. So all the money that you're spending, so the difference between what's the money that I spent on marketing versus the money I spent on, paying my employees. And then when you look at kind of like your AP, your AR clerks, those are going to be the ones that are actually helping you do whether it's paying people or whether it's invoicing people or whether it's, processing payroll, different things like that. Those are going to be kind of like the clerks working in your business. Now, the next area is your tax clerk. Now, tax clerks are going to be the person that you go to do your tax return. That's all they do, is work on your tax return. Now, as your business starts to evolve and get more complex, you may need to bring in a tax attorney or a CPA to deal with more complex tax strategies. So that's where they're going to come into play. Now, also, what you want to consider is if your business has to pay sales and use taxes, then you want to talk with a CPA or a tax attorney to kind of help you sort that out, because a lot of businesses think about taxes from the standpoint of the federal level, but they forget about the state and the local level. Because tax is a complicated topic, because you have one set of rules for the federal level, and then you have another set of rules at the state level, and then you may have an even new set of rules or different set of rules at the local level. So when it comes down to running a business, there may be 3 different tax codes that actually impact your business, which is why it's good for you to have a CPA that can help guide you through the complexity of all 3. And then
one thing I also want to say, though, is in a lot of cases, especially as a small business owner, going back to the bookkeeping, a lot of times you can't afford to hire a bookkeeper, an AP clerk, or an AR. A lot of times those roles are combined in one, where you hire a bookkeeper and you're expecting them to do, to invoice your customers, or maybe you're invoicing yourself, especially now with some of the, the tools and the resources that you have, like QuickBooks, where you can invoice your clients in, 5 to 10 minutes. So a lot of it is actually less than that, a minute to 2 minutes. But I think a lot of that is, sometimes you have situations in the bookkeeping where you are having, an AP or an AR clerk. So you don't necessarily need to hire each individual to do that, especially when you're, a 2 or 3 man show, or you're just starting out. But really just understanding, with the bookkeeping, it's the basics. It's the fundamental stuff that you need to keep your business running.
And see, that's the amazing thing, I guess, of working with your wife, because, sometimes she knows where I'm going before I get there.
I love it. No,
now in this one, she jumped there a little faster than I was expecting to get there, because I would say the last thing I wanted to say was, for your finance and your CFO, financial analyst and your CFO, that role that's the area where I tell people that's where you're working with a finance person who understands the nature of your business and is helping make sense of the numbers, because all the other people before, they're just completing a task. Now, the financial analyst and the CFO, they're the ones that are helping you, trying to make decisions in the future to improve your results, because everyone else that we've talked about so far, they're trying to help you either account or take care of something that has happened in the past, where your financial analyst and your CFO, They're trying to help you navigate the road and the decisions ahead. Now, as my wife mentioned, you know, you won't be in a situation where you need every single one of these roles. A lot of times these can be combined, like you said, you know, with the AP and the AR clerk and that stuff, your billing, your invoicing, a lot of that can be handled by either, you know, using a banking app to, you know, to process your payments, or Cash App or PayPal, whatever you use, or and then on the AR side, you invoicing through, you know, your system, whatever you're using, or using a payment processor like, you know, Square, or any other platforms you're using to collect payment from your customers.
Yeah, I think another thing also is a lot of people also think about like an accountant is not just automatically a CPA. That's, I think, something else that needs to be outlined. So bookkeepers are great. They come in, like Terrell said, on the basics. It's basically transactional, right? And then when you think about someone who's a CPA, really the expectation is that a CPA has more knowledge, more accounting knowledge, and specifically around like some of the tax rules, not enough to be a tax accountant, but just enough to be able to help you navigate and kind of help you think about, you know, some of the questions related to your business that would involve taxes. Like, for example, you know, doing your taxes, stuff like that. But I think the CFO and the financial analyst, I'm coming in with higher level of expectations, because I'm coming in with, you know, even for us and our clients, is our expectation is, or the expectation we feel like you should have of us is, as your CFOs, is we're helping give you information that is strategic, that is going to help you take your business to the next level. And I think that's where you really need to distinguish, is when you have someone that's a CPA, they have a bit more in depth. Well, let me not say a bit more, because there's a bunch of hours of studying affiliated with it. As a CPA, we're both speaking, I can speak to that. But with CPAs, there's a knowledge, accounting knowledge that's expected. Whereas when you hire someone to be a bookkeeper for your business, I wouldn't really expect that they can tell you, hey, this is the debit and this is the credit, right? Like, you know, that's pretty much the extent to where, as an accountant, I'm expecting that you know more about the accounting rules and treatment of accounting and different transactions. And then when you come into the CFO and the financial analyst part, I'm really expecting that you can tell me, you know, hey, these are some suggestions based on the numbers. You're not just doing the numbers. You're also going beyond that to tell me, hey, these are some strategic things you need to look at where your business is concerned to really help you take your business to the next level.
Absolutely. And I think that takes us into, like I said, the next point, I think, is really getting back to that question. How do I know that I'm working with, you know, the right accountant or the right finance person? And to be completely honest with you, I mean, it kind of depends. So what I'll do is we'll actually walk through a couple of situations and a couple of scenarios, and, you know, we'll just explain it. So here's scenario number one. So, you know, you're a small business owner, you have a bookkeeper that updates the books, and, you know, you've been doing this business, you know, for years. You know the business in and out. Your business and your industry hasn't really changed much. And you have a bookkeeper that does the books. They send you they send you the information once a month and stuff like that. And I would say, you know, to that person, I would say, if you have a good handle on your business, you've been doing it for a while, you know the ins and outs of it, you know, it might be sufficient for you to have a bookkeeper that sends you the information once a month. Now, what I will say is, and which is a reality, is even if you're in an older industry, things are constantly changing. Like, you're having to evolve. I mean, one of the things we saw with COVID is you have to make decisions faster. And you not only need just what happened in the past, you also need some indicators about, hey, what could happen if I do X or if I do Y?
Exactly.
If you are in that scenario two, where, hey, you're having to actually use the numbers to make forward-looking decisions, a basic bookkeeper may not be the right one for you. It may be time for you to upgrade to a higher level of support, because a basic bookkeeper may not be the one that will give you the support you need.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. And I think that's such a key point. I don't even think it may be. It's time for you to hire someone else. It's time for you to bring someone else in, because one of the things that we noticed, even especially, I think COVID is such a good example, is like, you didn't really know where things would go, especially if like, you had situations where, like, let's say you had a restaurant, like you stuff could be closed, your business could be down. So you really had to be on your feet and run multiple scenarios. Like, what am I gonna do if the business is open? What am I gonna do if I'm open at a limited capacity and it's underneath what I'm usually used to having? Like, how is that gonna impact my employees? How is that gonna impact my revenue? Those are all scenarios that you could have a business, you could have a bookkeeper run, but really the understanding to tell you this is what the numbers mean. It's just you're not getting the same level of support that you need. And like you said, you need the information to be able to pivot.
Mhm.
I think the other thing, like you said, I think you brought up a good point of like, that's when you would need to bring in a CFO or financial analyst. At what point would you say, maybe you don't really need a bookkeeper, you're a little bit past the bookkeeper, but you're not quite at the point of hiring a CFO? Like, would that be like an accountant or a CPA? What are you thinking?
Well, I think, I tell some people, if you have a CPA that does your taxes, one of the things that I always ask them is say, hey, if you need a little bit more than a bookkeeper, but you're not fully ready to bring on a CFO, here's two options that I would give you is talk to your accountant that does your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And just ask them if they can provide, hey, a little bit more reporting, or if they can take what the bookkeeper has done and give you some ideas and some tips. If your accountant is really good, your accountant will be able to do it. Now,
Yep.
if your accountant is just focused on tax, which a lot of them do, then what you possibly can do is option number two is and this is what I do with a lot of my clients, where they may not be at a point where they need to hire me on a monthly basis, to
Right.
where we do what I call a project, to where we talk through what are they trying to do, what are they trying to navigate in their business, and we build out a couple models for them, a couple files that they can do on their own, some self-service things that if they're trying to make a decision, for example, they're trying to introduce a new product and they want to know, what should I price this product at? Well, we can build a couple models to where they can move the numbers around a little bit with limited, modeling skills, because I'll build it all into the model for them. And then they can use that model to kind of update and play around. And so they don't have to pick up the phone and call me every single time. So
Yeah.
what I would say is either talk with your accountant that does your taxes, or you can reach out to a fractional CFO. Like I said, you can reach out to the TL Turner Group, because we do it all the time for clients, where we create a template for them to be able to use on their own, to where they now have the tool that they need, or a self-service tool that they need, to be able to make those decisions on their own. And then as things get a little bit more complex, let's say, for example, another scenario I'd point out is, if you're trying to get a loan for your business, or you have loans for your business and you're trying to buy different assets, you need more than a bookkeeper. You need someone who can help forecast and start building out financial planning models for you, because you're going to need that. One is it will help you in your interactions with the bank. Plus, it will help you in navigating the decisions that are going to come with this new level of operation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Not just to manage the loan and manage the inflow and outflow once you do get the loan, but also to prepare for that. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. So I guess just to wrap up, I want to leave the audience with these things. So this is our advice and our input when it comes to hiring or trying to decide on who to hire. These are 4 questions that we recommend that you ask your accountant when you're searching for an accountant, or when you're looking for an accountant and just trying to figure out, is this the right fit for me? The first thing you want to ask them is, hey, the first thing is, do they have the skill set? Okay. Is this just someone that's saying they're an accountant, or is this someone that's just like, hey, this is what I do, but really, do they have the skill set to support your business? Terrell and I have walked through a few scenarios and we've helped you understand, hey, at each part of your business, depending on what you need, this is who you need to hire. So you need to understand, do these people have, or the people that I'm considering to hire, do they have the right skill set for my business? I think the second thing that I would say is this person just a professional by title, or do they actually have the track record to prove and show that, hey, they've actually been able to deliver these services? You know, those people like online that say, hey, we're going to take your business to 20x in 5 months. And, you know, you ask them whose businesses they've done it on and they don't have any business to show. Like, yeah, you don't want that kind of person. You want someone that's they can actually show you they have a track record of helping businesses do whatever it is that they're selling, they're going to do for your business. I think that's important. The third thing is just, hey, do they understand what you need, or are they just trying to sell your product? I think that's important, right? So do they understand what your issue is? Are they asking the right questions? Are they really trying to get an understanding of your business? Or are they just trying to be like, okay, hey, this is my one size fits all routine. This is my one size fits all solution. Are they really understanding what you're trying to do? I think that is extremely important. The fourth thing I would say is, can they break it down? Like I said, here on Small Business CFOs, we make things simple because we believe that finance should not be the most complicated part of your business. Can the accountant that you're going to really break it down for you to understand the ins and outs of accounting, the ins and outs of your business, to really take it so that you can actually go action it? And I think those are extremely important. And if you want to dive in and get a deeper understanding, which we recommend, because again, accounting isn't something you should be playing with, especially when it comes to your business. We actually have a course to help you understand.
Hey, before we jump to that, can I just add another comment? I mean, in light of, taking our own advice of just breaking it down, to be very clear with you, first question of, is, do they have the skill set? One of the biggest areas for business owners where that becomes a problem is when it comes down to your taxes, because there are a lot of business owners that I meet that are getting some friend that they have to do their taxes because their friend is familiar with TurboTax. Yeah. I will be completely honest with you. The number of horror stories that I have heard because they had a friend do their taxes, and not to say anything against your friend, it's just asking yourself that question is, does this friend actually understand how taxes work for businesses? That's a good point. If they do not, then I would say, do not use your friend. Now,
find another friend. Now, find a friend that knows what they're doing. Okay.
Now, the second question is, are they a professional, or do they just have the title? It's very clear to understand, like, for example, every person who has the title of an accountant does not mean that they have the right skill set for what you're trying to do, because you can be a payroll clerk and be called an accountant, or you can be a controller or a senior accountant, which the skill sets are completely different, but both of them may have the title of an accountant. So you want to understand what's behind the title that they carry. And there's a lot of people who are CPAs, like my wife and I are CPAs. I don't specialize in tax, but for some reason, everybody thinks because I'm a CPA, oh, you must be a tax, like you can do my taxes. Yeah. Like, I understand them. I know them. And yes, I do taxes for a small group of clients, but that's not the area that I specialize in. And I even tell some people, depending on your tax situation, I'm not the right person for you.
And I think that's such a good point. I just want to make one point there, because a good CPA, a good accountant, a good professional, period, is able to be honest and admit and tell you what they do and do not do. Right? Yep. You're not just saying, hey, yes, because we have a CPA in our title, we could have just been like, hey, yes, we'll do your taxes. And then it's just a hot mess, right? So I think for us is just really looking for, is this person honest with you about what they will and will not do, or what they can and cannot do? Like if taxes aren't our specialty, like we're not going to sell you on taxes, because the reality is we care about you and we want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a difficult position, because at the end of the day, I don't care who does your taxes, you're going to be held responsible if something gets messed up by the IRS. The IRS will hold you responsible. So you want to make sure that you break it down. But yes, go ahead, Terrell.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think it segues us into, like I said, the courses that Lola was alluding to. The first course I would say is definitely a great course. It's, when to fire your accountant. I'm just going to be honest, because sometimes, you get to that point where it's time to end the relationship. And in this training, what I do is we just talk through, hey, here are some very real world situations, and these are the signs that it's time for you to fire your accountant. And move on to someone new, or hey, it's time for you to end that relationship, because you have to do what is best for your business. Like, if you are owning a business or if you are running a business that other people own, or let's say you want to pass that business down to your children, you owe it to your children to actually make the best decisions for the business. And sometimes that means you need to let your accountant go. So we're going to talk about, when to fire your accountant in that training. The other training, it was where we go a little bit deeper into selecting the right type of finance support. As I said before, you go from, bookkeeper, tax clerk, AP payroll clerk, you have a financial analyst, a CPA, a insurance agent, a banker, an investor. Like, all of those roles are finance related support for your business. And you have to understand, what do each of these do, so I know which one I need to call when a certain situation come up. And we deal with that in this interview, in that conversation, in that course, and we talk a little bit more about that to help you understand it. Because again, we're your small business CFOs, because most small businesses aren't at a point where they can afford to bring on a full-time CFO and pay, $250,000 a year plus, benefits. So what we decided to do is take all that we've learned from the major companies that we've worked with, even running our own businesses, and take it down to a fractional level to be able to help small businesses like yours navigate the finance side of their business. So thank you for tuning into this episode.